feeling down. For fast relief, take the Candy Stripe Nurses. A Candy Stripe Physical really gets physical.
This clinic deals specifically in sexual problems.
What's the matter? Having trouble?
Don't you ever get turned on?
Playing doctor was never so stimulating.
Candy Stripe Nurses, in color.
Yeah, right. Oh, God.
You know, there's like 5 of these nurse movies that Corman did. This is the last one. Candy Stripe Nurses is the name
He
of
did
it.
like student nurses, private duty nurses, nightfall nurses, young nurses, and then I think this is the last one he did.
I recognize Candace Rialson from other Corman movies. She did a few of them. She's very pretty. I think she left. I think she quit acting in 1980 or something. She got married or something.
Yeah, she got married and decided to leave.
I guess she was tired of making all these kind of half sleazy movies and being naked throughout the whole movies or whatever. It's I think she could have had a career in legit. Well, it's not like this isn't legit, but more big budget movies or whatever. Yeah. But she got married, had kids, and that was it for that. Robin Mattson became a soap opera actress.
Yeah, I didn't recognize her in this because she's so young and
thin.
She has this really weird haircut. But then when I looked up photos of her as older, she I was like, oh, I recognize her because I used to watch, in college, the women. A lot of the women watched
General Hospital.
Soap opera. Yeah, General Hospital. So you'd sit there and watch, and so I was like, remember her? I think she played a creep, or I don't know.
She did do like TV movies and stuff. So I think this is her first movie, and she was 18 or something.
Yeah, she also wrote a cookbook because I think her dad was a chef.
And then Maria Rojas?
Yeah, Maria Rojas.
She ended up being a politician in Mexico.
She's a congressperson or senator.
She was like 30 when she made this movie, from what I read. That's crazy.
Was she really?
Yeah, I read that she was 30, so I'm like, okay. Yeah, this is your typical Corman exploitation movies. A lot of nudity. Was there much comedy in this movie? Maybe a couple of scenes.
It's supposed to be goofiness.
Yeah.
Like the dialogue is trying to be funny, but it's not.
The stories don't all work, especially the rock star story. That was kind of lame.
That was
with the Owen. What was his name? Owen Grimsby or something. I don't remember. He had
Owen Bowles.
Owen Bowles. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I mean, I've never watched any of these nurse movies, so I didn't know what they were like. And I guess in this one, they try to weave 3 stories and into the. I mean, I was reading a review of it, and somebody said, and maybe they're right. They should have actually concentrated on one story and have the 3 nurses, get involved in that story. But that means that having 3 stories means you can have more TNA. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you get 3 stories of the Latin girl who she's kind of a juvenile delinquent, and she meets a guy in the hospital, and he was supposedly falsely accused for a crime. And then the second one is Candace Rialson. The first one is Candace Rialson and the rock star, and then the second one is and then the third one, or the second, I remember what the order one was the
doesn't matter.
Robin Mattson and the drugged up basketball player.
Yeah, she's
strange story though. You know what I mean?
Super serious, but he somehow gets her to like drop her seriousness, and she becomes a horn dog.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So
she wants to be a doctor, and
she wants to be a doctor. That's right. The other 3 were just happy being what they were. Well, Candace Rialson at the beginning was already a Candy Stripe nurse, I think, right?
Yes, and she was having sex with one of the doctors, like kind of dating him, and then he was doing her homework. she's in high school, so like kind of
Yeah, Candace Rialson looked a little too old for high school.
Yeah. And then
Robin Madsen could have been in high school, and the Maria Rojos, she looked kind of young too. So
yeah, she did look young.
but anyway, this movie starts off with Maria Rojos, right? She's in school whittling on a piece of wood, and some guy comes up to her, and tries to get her to go see a rock concert.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
It was a weird. It was a storyline that started at the beginning, and well, I guess it sets up what happens to her. But yeah, he's trying to get her to go see that rock concert, and she turns him down, and she's kind of nasty. And then he goes to Robin Madsen and tries to get her to go, and she's like a snob, and she turns him down. So.
And then she has a friend there she says, "Oh, I would love for someone to ask me a date," and I'm like, why didn't this guy ask that chick for a date?
The friend,
yeah,
her name is Tara Strohmeyer. She was in a lot of these Corman B movies, but she was only in that scene. And I was like, wow, that's it? You know, she was in like, oh boy, I can't even think of them right now, but she was in like about 10 Corman movies. She was a B movie, 70s, actress, very pretty, but that was it for her in this movie.
Hey, that's weird.
But I think she was in this one called Cover Girl Models that I have somewhere. Anyway, yeah, Tara Strohmeyer. But yeah, so what happened? The teacher comes up and he takes her knife away.
Takes her knife, and then she jumps him and beats him with a piece of wood, and then she's got to go to principal, and the principal says, "Well, you're, it's like the third time you're in here. You're a troublemaker, and this is I guess somewhere in California in the 70s.
Well, it's yeah, definitely.
So there's a lot of. I mean, it doesn't say where, but.
And she lives in a Mexican neighborhood because they drive by, you see all the murals of Mexico and all that.
And they have this part of her storyline, the prejudice against Mexicans.
One scene, yeah.
And so then she goes to be a candy striper. Then you see, like I said, the guy comes up, asks Robin and she's doing ballet and reading a book about the Renaissance. And he asks her, and she goes, "No, I'm not interested." And then you see the
she didn't want to go to a concert. Yeah,
the candy striper having sex, and
oh yeah, that's right. Candace Rialson and the guy are in the closet
having sex, and then they sneak out. She sneaks out, and then she goes home.
There was a conversation between them because she had gotten free tickets for the concert. Oh yeah, he kind of didn't want to go.
Right, and she said, some guy passed me. I said hello, and he says, "Oh, that's the nicest thing anyone said to me today." And you assume it's the guy from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And he gave her both tickets. So it's like, yeah. So she goes, I have I think it was an Owen Bowles concert.
It was an Owen Bowles concert. Yeah, it sure was.
And she's like, you want to go? So, I don't know. He hems and haws and stuff. So she says, well, I'll go with somebody else. He goes, oh, I thought we were going out tonight. So I want to go to the concert, blah, blah. Then she goes home and her Aunt Edna's there with her mother. And she's such a smart girl. She's a candy striper. I wonder how she does it. Oh, and then you see her in the bathtub, nude, of course.
She's already had 2 nude scenes at this point.
Yeah, she's smoking a joint, and she's,
doing her homework.
It's like, okay, whatever. It's just a scene to show her naked.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it switches to this guy, what's his name, Carlos? And he's
the guy, yeah. Maria Rojas sees him in the hospital.
He's looking for a light. He sees a guy with a nice motorcycle. Hey man, you got a light? No, I don't. So he says, he goes, I got to pee. So he tries to go in the bathroom of a gas station. That's locked. He goes in to the guy and says, can I have the key? And the guy's the old white guy, and he's all, come back, get out of here. And then he says, well, I got to pee here. Then he's like, oh no, here's the key. And then as he's giving him the key, these 2 guys come in hold the old guy and Carlos at gunpoint. And the guy goes, and they rob him, and the guy goes to shoot one of them. They knock him out, and then Carlos is there, like all scared, so he starts to run. And the crooks get in the car and drive away, and the old guy comes and shoots Carlos, and then calls the police, and then he's they think he was in on the robbery, so they arrest him. And
Well, the owner thinks he's in the robbery too.
Yeah. So,
because I mean, the guy wanted to go to the bathroom, and all of a sudden, as soon as he went in and he got out, those other two guys were there. So maybe he was thinking that he was trying to, like,
distract him or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then he's.
And there's also a deal about maybe I don't know if it's around that time. Wasn't there a deal with one of the guys had a special motorcycle or something like that?
Yeah, that was he came up beforehand.
Yeah.
And asked him for a light. So that's the witness he'll eventually be looking for.
Yeah.
Proof he was innocent. So then you see Maria Rojo. She's a candy striper. She's drinking juice. She's handing out juice, and she goes into Carlos' room, and he's like,
he's chained to the bed.
Yeah, he's handcuffed to the bed, and she's like, "Hey, you're that robber." At first, she's nice to him, and then she's like, "Hey, you're that robber guy who robbed the store and shot the cop." He says, "Oh, I'm innocent." She says, "If you're innocent, why don't you tell them?" She says, "Oh, they won't believe me because I'm
Mexican,
and So then did they go to the sex clinic? Oh, they need someone to fill in for the receptionist at the sex clinic.
Yeah.
And then Candace Rialson volunteers, and she's there, and while she goes there, then the doctor's doing his rounds. And who's the doctor? He's in he's a character actor. Don Keith.
What is he? I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, he was in a lot of movies. He usually played doctors or lawyers.
I did not recognize him.
Yeah, he had a lot shorter hair and no beard when he was younger. And,
okay. All right.
Yeah, they needed like an attorney to come walking in, and he would do it. If you saw him in other movies, you'd recognize him. So
okay, because he had like a goatee in this or something like that,
and his hair was a lot longer and curlier.
Well, I'll look him up right now.
Yeah. So he's doing rounds. So Robin Matson wants to go with him because she wants to be a nurse. So he goes, "Oh, all right." So he's talking to her, and in the meantime,
does Candace Rialson get in the bed with another guy?
She gets in the bed with the patient. And
this is her third topless scene.
She gets in the bed with the patient, and then he has to go to the bathroom. So he goes to the bathroom, and in the meantime, as they're doing rounds, the doctor and Robin Matson walk in, and she's sort of hiding, and then he pulls the covers back, and he's like, "You," and then the patient comes out and says, "What's going on?" Oh, and then suddenly there's an emergency. "Doctor, they need you in the ER." So they go to the ER. And that's where you see the basketball player who's acting all wild and crazy. And the
doctor's name, the actor who played the doctor's name is Don Kiefer, and he's been in movies that I've seen, but I do not recognize him. I recognize him better without a goatee.
Yeah, he's a bit player. Been in a ton of movies, a ton on TV too.
Yeah, he was in Billy Jack and Butch Cassidy and.
But he's kind of nondescript, so.
He was in The Young Nurses too.
So you see his face and you kind of recognize him, but you're not.
He had glasses on too in this one, right? He had glasses on.
Yes, he did. That's right. He had glasses.
And the other movies I've seen him with, if I recognize him, he did not have glasses on. So.
Right. So anyway, the doctor's trying to take care of the basketball patient who's fighting everybody, and he goes and he tries to jump after Candace, and she's all like flighty and worried. And then they finally strap him, the basketball player, down, and the doctors, they say, "Oh, nurse, take his blood, see what's going on." And then suddenly the sports doctor shows up, and he's like, "I'll take care of him, so just everybody leave, and I'll calm him down." And so the doctor, suspiciously, instead of taking blood from the basketball player, he takes it from his own arm and gives
Right.
it. So there's no detection of drugs. And another nude scene. Oh no, that was
I don't remember.
yeah. So then then you see Robin Matson. She's filming the basketball star as it's they're at practice. They're playing shirtless, and she's filming it. She's
He
trying.
invited her because she said
Yeah,
something
that's right.
about that ballet and basketball have some similarities or something.
She ended up talking to him while he was in the hospital. He's like, I don't know, yeah, I'm okay. I guess, he said, "Oh, you move beautifully." Yeah, she said, "Basketball is like ballet." I don't care.
Yeah, right.
Then she's filming him, and first you see legs, and then the movements of the arms and stuff. It's beautiful movement. And then he sort of, so they sort of walk off to another part of the gym where there's exercise and stuff, and then they're alone, and then he starts chasing her around, and she starts laughing, and then he kisses her, catches her and kisses her, and their clothes come off, and they're having sex and stuff. You don't really see anything.
Yeah.
And then
see a little bit.
Yeah, but not like you would see today.
No.
And then was it Maria Rojo? She goes in and she sees that the guy isn't chained to the bed. And he said, "Well, my lawyer got me, Carlos, that's the guy who was falsely accused. Oh, my lawyer got him to uncuff me if I did a plea deal." She says, "Oh, well, what does that entail?" I said, "Oh, I'll go to prison for 10 years. She said, "Are you really innocent?" He goes, "Yeah, I am. I didn't do it, but I can't prove it. There was a witness, but, I can't find him. I don't know his name. All I remember is he had this special
motorcycle
bike." Yeah, so then she goes on a mission looking, and she's searching for
the missing motorcycle. The guy.
Looking for the
motorcyclist.
And she's walking around, and she's going to different garages and stuff, and
and the guys are all sleazy and stuff.
Yeah. And then she's on the phone. Goes to a phone booth and looking through the yellow pages, and then two kids
steal her purse,
and they're running, and she's running after them. And there's one scene where there's this like wall at the end, the path they're running on, it goes sort of like around this low wall. And instead of staying on the path and running around, the two kids climb over the wall, which made no sense. And she climbs over the wall. It's like, all you had to do was just run around the path. I mean, the wall was like maybe 2.5 feet high, but whatever. And I don't know why that scene was in there, because she gets that.
It's padding. It's total padding. It's just to make the movie a little bit longer,
I guess. So, what does that say? I can't read my notes.
I mean, scenes like that could have been replaced by some another nude scene of some sort, instead of having like a little chase with some kids down. I mean, it was just.
Yeah.
Apparently, the director of this movie was found in. He was graduated from film school, and I think this was the first movie he directed. So he wasn't that great. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, he wasn't that great. Somebody wrote in a review of this movie that it looked this movie kind of looked like a triple X movie without all the hard sex or whatever. I'm going like, maybe, I don't know.
Not even that. So anyway, she goes to a gas station or some garage again, talking to guys and like, oh, I kind of know Ray. He might be down working at the supermarket. Or it's like, oh, he used to work here, but he's at the supermarket. In the meantime, some other sleazy mechanic goes up and, hey, you have a leaking gasket. If you do it, I can do it for 100, but for you, because you're cute, you're 50, and then she starts threatening him. I guess to show that she's tough. And then he backs away, and then as she walks away to go to the supermarket, the two guys are like, "Yeah, what a woman! Wow!" So then, as she's driving, she has this sex fantasy about her and Carlos, and that's when you see her naked and him, doing.
Yeah, they should have just cut out that scene with the kid and made that sex fantasy like,
Yeah, something.
or something.
So then it switches to Candace Rialson at the sex clinic because she's filling in as the
Yeah, and it's a rock star who's impotent.
Yeah.
Two groupies and a really obnoxious manager, real pushy manager.
Before that is a scene where she picks up the phone and she's talking to someone, and they're like, "Oh, well, he can help with that." What? With a duck? I don't know. And who's going to your sister? But what? Oh, and the string? It's like some weird, and you can
Some weird joke.
to imagine what's on the other line. It's like, whatever. Yeah. So then the rock star comes in, and he's all blasé, and he's got these two vapid groupies draped all over him. He's, and then and the manager who's like, talking up a Blue Storm. So then they meet the doctor, and when Robin sees that it's Owen Bowl, she's all like, oh, he's my favorite rock star, blah blah. So then they go in and saying like he has no sex drive, he has no energy, no oomph, no whatever, and his performances are lackluster and stuff. So we need help. And then the guy goes, well, I'll have my sex therapist go over to your house and deal with him and stuff. And in the meantime, Candace is listening at the door, and then she gets caught, and she's like, well, I'm sorry, So then he says, all right, Bowles and the entourage leave. And he says, all right, here's this number. Call the sex therapist and tell her to go over to this address for Owen Bowles. So then he goes back to his office. And then Candace, she like leaves. She gets all dressed up, gets her hair all
Yeah.
And the doctor sees her and says, hey, where you going? Don't we have our date tonight? She's like, oh, I can't. I got something to do. I'll call you. So then she goes over to the is that when that happens?
Doesn't she after this? Doesn't she go to Owen Bowles' house or something?
Yeah, she goes to Owen Bowles. She drives up and see her going to Owen Bowles' house.
And he's in the pool, and he's like, I couldn't give a crap about anything. And he's got his two groupies there, and one of them says to her, "Oh, I'm a witch," and I'm like, "Oh boy."
And then she's trying to get him aroused, and he's like, ugh. She's like, ugh. So then she gets up. She says, "I'm out of here. This guy's a winky." She's like, "Go, goodbye." And he's like, "Hey, you can't leave." He goes, she's like, screw off. And he's like, "Come back here, come back." And the manager's like, "Wait, come back." And then he's like, "Nah." She's like, "Nah." So then as she's leaving, she hides her purse on the couch so she can come back, and then she leaves. Then it switches to a basketball game. Is that right? Wait a minute.
Yeah, I think the basketball game is next. Yeah.
And
the basketball, the guy, the main guy there, he's missing shots. He's not doing that great. The team's losing, and I think that's when he goes to the doctor on halftime and asks him for like more speed or something like that.
And I think just before that, there was a scene where Maria Rojas goes to the supermarket with
And some ladies, he talks to a woman, yeah.
yeah, who, I guess the owner or whatever. Oh, he doesn't work there. He now works at the
The butcher shop or something?
junkyard. It was a junkyard.
Oh, the butcher shop was later. Okay.
Yeah, and then while she's doing that, you see one of the crooks who robbed the guy earlier. He's sort of like, oh, listening. So accidentally, he was there when she was finding out.
This Maria Rojo's story is the most convoluted of all three of them.
Yeah, and it doesn't really make sense.
Doesn't really do anything, I mean,
So anyway,
whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, she goes to go to the
Junkyard, right?
junkyard, but then the guy just stops her and says, "Hey, I know this guy, the guy you're looking for, and he no longer works at the junkyard. He now works at this restaurant or butcher shop, whatever it is, and just go there and you talk to her, and if him, and if you can't find him, ask for Eddie because he'll help you out. He'll know where he is." So then she goes to the butcher shop restaurant, and you see this fat guy there. He's the other crook who robbed the gas station. He's chopping meat and stuff. And she asks him about Ray, and then he gets all, he's weird and creepy and eerie. And then he pulls out a gun and forces her into the back room. And then, he corners her and then forces her to get down and open her dress. And he's going to rape her. And then he puts the gun down, do it. And then she grabs the gun and she holds it to her head. So then she gets him to go up and back off and stuff. And then she leaves. And
is that when she goes back to the hospital, or is that another time? Yeah.
No, then she goes to the junkyard.
The junkyard, right. The hospital's later, yeah.
He sees the guy and he's like, "Oh no, the guy, he was the head of the ringleader. He's the one who shot the gas station attendant." She's like, "No, you're lying. No." And what he doesn't know is that the other guy, the first crook, he's behind him with a gun.
Yeah. The main bad guy, yeah.
Yeah, the main bad guy.
The young guy.
She goes back to She goes back to the hospital. This gets weirdly
convoluted. It's very convoluted, this storyline.
Yeah, she goes back to the hospital and she sees that Ray is not there. Ray is in.
He's not there anymore. He was let out of the hospital. Yeah.
He was there, and she gave him the card saying, as she was running out of the junkyard, she ripped her dress on this car, and she looked at the car, and then she gives Ray the guy in the hospital. She gives him the address of the junkyard, and then as she's walking away, she goes, "Wait a minute!" Oh, and she's crying, and then the head nurse comes. "Oh, what's the matter, dear?" Oh, she's crying, dear. And she goes, "Oh, you tore your dress too." And she goes, "Yes, I tore it on." Wait a minute, because she suddenly recognized the car, and then she went back to the hotel to find the guy. That's hotel. The hospital room to find.
Yeah. Right.
Carlos, he was gone. Then she figured he went to see he went to the junkyard.
I know. I'm telling you, I got like that storyline is in the middle of the movie, and at this point, you're kind of like, okay, what's going on here now? Eventually, the guy in the hospital was let out.
Yeah, and then
so he's not a free man, but he's waiting to get his sentence.
Yeah, he's on bail. So he goes to the junkyard, and in the meantime, she drives to the junkyard. It's closed. She gets in. She's sneaking around. She sees that Carlos the hospital guy and the guy who's the witness. They're tied up and gagged, and then you see the two crooks, and they'll go to rob the store, and then they're going to take care of the two guys and shoot them. But in the meantime, as they go, she sneaks up, she unties one, and then the other guy's coming back, so she hides, and the fat guy's going to shoot the two innocent guys, and then she comes out with a bar to hit the fat crook. She gets shot and laid down. Oh. And then you see the other, the Carlos, who was untied. He gets up, and he goes after the younger crook. And the younger crook hears the gunfire. He gets freaked. He runs out into the street, and there's a cop there, and he stops and holds up his hand, and the cop's trying to get his gun out of the holster, and the young crook reaches over and just lifts up the it was like what? So so that the cop can get out his gun, and then he holds it up. Then in the meantime, it goes back to the two other girls. They're at a basketball game watching.
Robin Matson and Candace Rialson are watching. Yes. The blonde-headed guy, the speeded up
basketball player.
Guy with speed, yeah.
He's having troubles again, and then he gets. He asks the.
He has a coach or whatever. The doctor of the
school doctor. He gets more speed. He's playing the game, and he's really fast, and he wins. Then he invites the two girls out to celebrate, and in the audience is Dick Miller.
Dick Miller was a heckler in front of him.
Yeah. And
who should have been in the movie
yes,
more than
he should have played either one of the crooks or something that you interact with the.
Yeah, because he's a better actor and funnier.
Yeah. So then they're celebrating. He's driving like a maniac all over the place,
knocking mailboxes over and park benches.
Yeah, and and then he crashes, and then he's going into the hospital, and
that's when they start figuring out what's going on.
Yeah, so he's hot, and then again, this is the doctors. They take him in the emergency room. The doctor's going to operate, and then Robin Masters. You gotta. She figured out during the crazy drive. He revealed that he's on speed. So then Robin Masters is trying to tell the doctor he's on speed. But instead of saying it, she's like, "Doctor, I have to talk to you. I have to tell you something." He's like, "This is emergency. Get out of here." But doctor, I have to tell you something. This is why didn't you just say, "Doctor, he's on speed"?
She knocks him down and everything, and I'm like,
"Oh yeah." So then they're going to give him blood. She says, "No, you can't give him." They don't know what blood type he is, so they're going to give him blood based on the last blood test. And then she stops them. "Stop, you can't do that because the last blood test wasn't his blood. It was the sports doctor's blood." I don't know how she figured that out. So she runs to get the right blood. Even though she's a candy stripe, she gets the right blood, and then they save the basketball player. And then as they're wheeling him to the hospital, to his hospital bed, they bump into the other girl who is Maria Rojas, who was shot.
Yeah.
And then she's on a gurney, so the two gurneys meet, and they're like, they're trying to figure out. So then Carlos with the shot Maria, they go one way. Robin Matson with
and the basketball player going the
other way, and then that leaves Candace Rialson there, and then her doctor boyfriend comes, and she's like, "I'm sorry."
No, you forgot a scene. You forgot the resolution of the rock star.
Oh, right, that's right.
She goes back to get her purse.
Yeah, she goes back to get her purse. How could I forget that?
Because this thing is a convoluted mess. That's why, I'm glad that you took notes, because this time I didn't take notes, And I'm like,
I know. It's all
man,
over
I mean,
the
I remember these scenes, but I forget
right.
about the intertwining of them. Every scene you talked about, I remember, but the order of them is like, it's so hash. It's so
So the resolution of the Candace storyline is she goes
back
to
to the house.
back to the house because she says my purse is here. She's looking for the purse, and he's there, and he's, oh, you come back. She's like, I didn't come back from you. I'm looking for my purse. And then she figured out that if she says no to him,
He would get all worked
he
up
would get all
about it.
up because everybody says yes to him. So then, she keeps saying no, and then he suddenly gets supercharged, and he jumps on her, he's kissing her, and the manager comes in, tries to pull him off, and he's jumps back on her and kissing her and stuff. And then the two groupies, they're like, oh,
They
oh,
start taking their clothes off
yeah,
and
they take
jumping
their
on
clothes
him.
off and they're jumping. So it's like a foursome they're trying to have. And she's like, get off me. Everybody get off me. So she gets up and gets away. Meanwhile, Bowles is on the two other girls, and they're
And then there was one scene where there was one scene where the manager pulled Bowles off, Candace Rialson, and Bowles is like panting like a dog or
yeah,
whatever. That was bizarre.
crazy. Oh, anyway, so then the manager says something to her, and she's like, he's yucking disgusting. And so that kind of resolved her attitude about
Yeah, he's cured now, supposedly. So
famous men and whatever. So then at the end, when she's there and she sees her doctor friend again, he apologizes, she apologizes. Then they realize they're across from the linen closet. So then they both go in, and then you hear laughter and giggling and stuff. In the end, it was
it was convoluted. Especially
Yeah.
the Maria Rojo story was so convoluted. It wasn't even funny. If that segment would have been, but they couldn't do it this way because they want to interweave the stories. If
Right.
that segment would have been like more linear and not being interrupted by the other parts, it
Right.
would have been easier to digest. The other storylines were simpler. That one was like, woof.
But you can also have done them sequentially, the
Sure.
one, then the other, and make it more like an anthology, I guess. So,
Sure. You know
but
the thing about the linen closet, I was watching another podcast. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched a little bit of it. They were saying that this movie was shot in two hospitals
right.
because apparently they got the approval to shoot it in one hospital, and that scene in the linen closet, the staff didn't know they were going to do that, and somebody a hospital administrator walked in and saw that going on, and they kicked them out of the hospital. So they had to go to another hospital and do the sex clinic thing because they got kicked out of the regular hospital for not telling them they were going to do a sex scene in a linen closet. I'm telling you. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I listened to part of it today. This is from a guy who worked on the movie was saying it, and I'm like, oh,
Ah,
that's hilarious. That's typical cheapo Corman,
yeah,
stuff or whatever.
yeah. For what it was, basically, the people who this movie was made for were young guys
Sure,
who just wanted
drive-in.
to see boobs, and you
Yeah,
could have
there's
had 90 minutes of just women jumping up and down, or it's 77 minutes of women jumping up and down without their shirts on, and guys still would have gone to see it.
Yeah, because you were in your car drunk or with a
Yeah,
girlfriend, and you wouldn't even watch half the movie anyway. You just. And
that's what happened.
This was 74, so this was pretty late in the game for those kind of movies.
Yeah, I don't think there were too many movies like this.
First,
I mean,
there used to be there was originally there was like stewardesses movie, the stewardesses,
yeah,
and then you got the nurses, then you got the cheerleader, then you got the student teachers, then you got the teacher, you got Trip with the teacher, then you got the pom pom girls. That's the 70s in a nutshell,
yeah,
right
exactly.
there.
Yeah, well, I can remember as a kid growing up hearing that nurses were great to date because they knew about physiology and chemistry and stuff. It was like nurses were easy dates. The stewardesses were easy dates.
Supposedly.
Yeah, supposedly, but that's
The,
what the guys.
the cheerleaders were easy dates,
Yeah,
supposedly. The jocks,
yeah.
maybe.
Courage,
Yeah,
man.
I could go on about that, but I'm not going to do the, it's the
Yeah,
candy striped nurses. But yeah, I mean, the first movie it wasn't a nurse. It was 74. My friends one of my friends got his license, and he had a car when he was 16, and I was only 15 or whatever. So the movie theater in where we lived was showing a movie called The Teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how we did it, but the three or four of us got together, and he goes, "Hey man, why don't we see, like, it was just in the middle of the week too, if I remember correctly. Why don't we see if we can get in? Because apparently this theater would let anybody in. It was in our town. It wasn't far away from where I lived. So it came and picked us up. We got in, and we saw The Teacher. And that was the first kind of was it softcore? It was tamer than
Not
this.
even. Yeah.
Tamer than this, but it had Angel Tompkins, and it had a grown-up Jay North was in it. So
Oh.
it's weird, but
Yeah.
this is the type. It was kind of like this type of movie. It was action, little sex. I don't know about comedy in The Teacher, but yeah, it was like,
And some political stuff. They tried to.
yep, that was part of. That's that. The apparent. I was reading about this today. Like, so it was a quote, and they said Corman wanted a little social relevance in this movie, some TNA, some comedy, and some action. That was his. That's what he wanted in these movies. So I guess he was trying to, like, grab all different kind of audiences, and they tried in this movie
And
anyway.
it could also, if people complain too much, he's like, well, I'm showing how people are, because they're Mexican, they're being mistreated.
That was the social consciousness part of it.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
he
the
probably,
sexual. Yeah, yeah, the
probably
action.
like you said, he was probably trying to hit all bases, and
Well,
also, just sort of like calm down some of the crazier people who would like freak out over these kind of movies.
he knew how to make one. He knew how to make these
Yeah.
movies. He knew the ingredients. They would hire cheap actors, not cheap actors, but not people that would work on a budget. Let's put it that way. Young directors would get a tryout, and if they did a crappy job, I mean, Corman would have somebody re-edit it or reshoot some scenes or try to fix it. And if it looked like relatively, coherent, okay, put it out. Oh,
Yeah,
I forgot
exactly.
about the other genre of the '70s, the women in prison.
Oh yes. Yeah,
There was
we watched
Sweet Sugar,
Sweet Sugar, yeah.
and then there was the whenever there was a big hit movie, then there was there was an Exorcist craze, and I'll tell you another movie that I think we got in underage to see at the Colonial Theater was Big Bad Mama with William Shatner and Angie Dickinson. That was another one that I saw in the theater. We were like, my friend had the car. I said, "Oh, let's try to get in," and we did. So that was another Corman New World.
The sort of crime.
It was like set in the 20s.
Yeah.
It was like
But
country crime. Angie Dickinson. I think it was before Police Woman. I'm not sure.
yes, it was.
And Shatner and
Shatner and stuff.
and I forgot who the.
There was a bunch of black exploitation movies. A whole
That's
bunch
right, black exploitation. That was another one. It was the
know,
era of exploitation.
The Private Eye, or like Shaft, and
Or they had like and then, not to mention, forget about the U.S. Over in Europe, they did their own crime movies, cop movies. I think they stopped doing westerns around this time. I'm not sure, but their Exorcist movies, the thriller movies, the convoluted. If you want to watch a convoluted movie that doesn't, a lot of times don't make sense, watch some of those. They call them giallos, those erotic thrillers they made over there with all these weird storylines, but lots of sex and lots of violence, and I mean, it was an interesting time for movies. By the '80s, teen comedies, horror, stuff like that, pretty action movies, superhero guys, Conan, Muscleman movies or whatever. But in the '70s, it was like every year there was a new genre of exploitation or whatever. There were still teen movies, like car movies. Then they had what's his face? Coppola came out with American Graffiti, so you started getting like movies about the '50s or whatever, or at least the past time, or even back in the '70s, you were getting movies about, like, how good it was in the past and stuff like that. Like
American Graffiti was in '73. And then that seemed to have
That started off like Happy Days Revolution and all that stuff.
and Hollywood Nights, that movie we did with Tony.
That was
Danza.
80, but yeah, that was a knockoff of that.
That was kind of like an older. Yeah, there was a whole bunch of movies.
And then you had those southern moonshine, like those Burt Reynolds Gator and White Lightning and that kind of stuff or whatever.
And you had like Porky's sex comedy.
That was 80s, yeah,
Very,
the Porky stuff.
Yeah, very compared to this, a lot more tame in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
See as much nudity as you did in this.
Yeah. This was, they got, well, did they get tamer? Yeah, I guess they did,
It's they seem to have gone two ways. They got tamer, or they would go to softcore porn.
Well, and the thing was, in the Corman movies, I may be wrong on this, I don't know, but it seemed like what we were talking about before, where he tried to put all like social relevance and consciousness and all that. I think that kind of eroded later on, and it just became a straight-on goofball sex movie or whatever. They didn't try to, do anything. It was an interesting time to watch. I don't watch movies anymore because I think they're a piece of poop today. But it was an interesting time to watch movies. Let me tell you. And the thing about it was, you always went to the movies. Did I tell you about that list? I don't know where it is right now, but I came up with at least 320 movies that I saw in the theater back in the 70s and 80s. Because by the 90s, I started toning down a little bit, but that's a lot of movies. Okay. Anyway, right. we've done our rant about
now I gotta go yell at
our old crabby guy rant, and we also got a movie review while you were at it too. So
I gotta go yell at some kids who are on my lawn.
Yeah, I gotta go tell the kids to get off my lawn, and literally for me, but anyway. So yeah, candy striped nurses.
Candy striped nurses.
Hey, it's on Pluto. You're gonna get a crap load of commercials, but give it a shot. You might like it. There's a version of it on YouTube, but they took out the nudity, which doesn't make any sense to me. But there is a copy of it on YouTube. But Pluto, man, I was watching it, and the first commercial break was like 7 commercials. I was like, oh my God. Little by little, there was less and less and less, but it was incredible. But they got to make their money. So
and that's when you go get something from the kitchen.
Go to the bathroom, you go get some snacks.
Yeah.
Tubi, I think. Well, Tubi, was this movie on Tubi also, or just Pluto?
Might be on Tubi as well. But Tubi has their own commercials too. So
yeah, they do. They all do. But that's what you pay the price for watching free movies by getting some commercials. So.
And that's how we used to watch TV too.
Yeah.
Commercial break.
But back then, commercial breaks were like a minute, maybe a minute and a half, and then it was like, anyway, that's another. I'm not going to get into a topic on commercials.
We'll be here all day.
I don't want to hear. I just say I don't want to hear commercials about these cleaning pads for women, and these Medicare commercials, and all this stuff that shows up on Roku. It's really annoying. Anyway, that's it for the show. Candy Striped Nurses. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with something equally as whatever, equally as exploitive, I guess is the word. Yes. I don't know. But in the meantime, Roddy.
In the meantime, watch more free movies.